The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God and welcome in. Well, last Tuesday, you saw something that had been advertised in many, many elections before: foreign interference. That's a conspiracy. America has the safest, most fairest, most freest elections in all of the world, right? The gold standard. But that's not true. And we know that's not true because we saw what happened on Tuesday night in Kentucky with Thomas Massie. Now, remember, the team was assembled: President Trump, Pete Hegseth, Miriam Adelson, AIPAC, the, the billionaire Jewish coalition came together for the 4th district in Kentucky. The 7-term Representative Thomas Massie lost that seat, and it wasn't even close. Now, we do mind point out it was mail-in, heavy mail-in voting, of course, so we know that everything's off the table when mail-in voting comes into play. If you want free and fair elections, you can't have mail-in voting. I don't know how much more simple that can make it. That's how these things get so out of control. It's how we saw 81 million votes come in for Joe Biden in the 2020. Many of those post the cutoff, many of those coming in the middle of the night, many of those coming in with 100,000 Joe Biden votes in a row, which is statistically, mathematically impossible because even one of those people is going to make a mistake on that ballot, right? So we don't believe the 81 million. But we do look at what happened to Thomas Massie. Let's just pretend it was the fairest, safest, freest election Kentucky's ever had. No problem. What we saw happen, though, and this isn't supposed to happen to America, is that foreign interests outside of the state, outside of the district, truly purchased a seat in the U.S. Congress and displaced the organic, homegrown, multi-term, and this was dominant wins by Thomas Massie. It wasn't like he was winning 51-49, 75-25, 76-24, 80-20. He has had some slaughters. Why? He's MAGA. Thomas Massie is MAGA. And if you're wondering who's left in the Congress, who's left in Washington, D.C. to carry that torch, there isn't one. Lauren Boebert, who was also threatened by the president. Remember, she supported Thomas Massie. She said, I can love my president and I can love my friend Thomas Massie, and that doesn't make me a bad person. And she's correct. She is absolutely correct. President Trump, though, doesn't see it that way, sees it very differently, sees it like this: if you cross the machine, I will break you. I will come after you. Donald Trump is now a part of the machine, the system, the swamp, the filth that we said we want drained, the statement that we fell in love with. Remember 2015, coming down the escalator with the lovely Melania. What is he going to do? He's going to build a wall, drain the swamp. And he has joined the swamp. I think it's clear, and we're just waiting on our baby boomer. Remember, our 62 to 80s. Once they understand that Donald Trump has actually switched teams on them, he no longer plays for this MAGA America First, this thing that really captured America, the greatest political movement in the history of politics. There is no second place close to what he built. And it chugged along and it fought through fraud in the 2020. Remember, we had all the impeachment hearings. We had Russia, Russia, Russia. We had the phone call with Zelensky. We had a term that was riddled with chaos and lack of. We had George Floyd during the term. We had COVID during the term. This was a messy first term for Donald Trump, but the coalition stayed right with him. Myself included, 3-time Trump voter now. Remember that now. And I wouldn't take those votes back, even knowing what we know now. Now, we know he's potentially a pedophile, or certainly at the least protecting pedophiles. That we can see. You name it, it's in there. We have enough to go get at least one other person outside of Ghislaine and Jeffrey. Okay. And he's preventing that from taking place. Why? You're leaving us with very little options other than you're one of them. You're part of this, in which everything's off the table. And just so we're clear, I hope and I pray for America that Donald Trump is simply protecting his pedophile friends. Do you understand the amount of devastation and the immediate chaos if, in fact, he's a participant in the abuse of children? The con job, because remember, all this would have taken place before the 2015, the 2017, he takes the White House. All of this would have happened before that. And we bought that hook, line, and sinker. Now, we knew about the dirty talk on the leaked extra episode where he's caught on calling it locker room talk, where he's talking about you can just grab them here or there if you're famous, if you're rich, right? And we knew that, and we overlooked that, thinking, yeah, but Hillary Clinton is so bad. I don't mind the locker room talk. He's going to close the border. He's going to drain the swamp. We're in. Give him a pass. I think that pass was now much more than it was a tell. It was telling us who he was. And at a minimum, I hope we're on the same page, whether you are a baby boomer still all in on Donald Trump or a person who has always despised him. You should be able to recognize that one of two things, and possibly both, are true. He either is guilty of the behaviors mentioned, listed, seen. We can see what's going on here with these children and these girls. He's either one of those, or he absolutely knows the people that committed those crimes and is willingly, intentionally interfering with the prosecution of men who abused children. Neither are going to fly. So see, he's left with this absolutely horrific end of his life, end of his legacy, if he can survive it. There's not going to be anything left. Once the baby boomer, remember, this is 62 to 80, their parents were World War II veterans, farmers, they were machinists, factory workers, supplying the war, supplying the world. Their children now are the demographic that voted for Trump, that are hanging in there and saying, this man can do no wrong. Once that slips, once that's gone, and Iran is going to push this issue for us. That's what's so good. We know Iran is involved in the timing because of the Epstein files. There was no imminent risk. We know that. That's clear. Joe Kent testified that. Tulsi Gabbard, who is stepping down, mentioning this weekend, husband, serious cancer, she's going to step down. Is that the sincere reason? I don't know. We're going to pray for her husband. We're going to pray for his recovery. The supernatural, only the Lord Jesus Christ can deliver. So we're going to always be praying for that. But it is a lot of exodus from this second Trump team. The women are being fired or let go or leaving the administration at a violent, accelerating rate. They're all gone now. And I think that's because the cover-up is having to get so tight. There is a lot of deceit in this Donald Trump White House. And I think what the sad thing is, when it's all said and done, we have enough now to compare the Joe Biden presidency and the Donald Trump presidency and say, what was the difference in the character? What was the difference in the ethics? What was the difference in the movement for a better life for the average blue collar American? I see no difference as of right now, but this one can only get worse for Donald Trump, because we are still going to get those Epstein files. Thomas Massie has 7 months to do as much damage as he possibly wants or can before they physically eject him, remove him, possibly kill him. He now has nothing to lose. He absolutely was the victim of crossing the machine, the system that says, you don't reveal our secrets. Remember, Thomas Massie, a true MAGA person, okay, what did he like? He didn't like us sending money all over the world. He voted no on foreign aid, not just Israel, but they accused him because of his anti-Semitism, because he's such a cold-hearted, Jew-hating SOB. He voted for no money for Israel. And that wasn't true at all. He voted for no foreign aid for no country anywhere in the world. Why? Because that's American taxpayer dollar that these people are spreading out all over the world. They're not asking our permission. Every single one of you on a fixed budget, tight budget, week to week, paycheck to paycheck. There is no way you would rather that nation have that money in their pocket than you. Stop with the games. We're not doing that. And he said we don't do foreign aid. He also said we don't give a pass to pedophiles. We don't allow them to abuse our children, not be punished for that, but then also make a fortune and serve at the highest levels and some of those powerful places in this world. We don't allow for that. So what did he do? He pioneered the release of the Epstein files. We had to have them. We got 3.5 million. We need another 3 million. We know there is some wicked, awful stuff inside of those 3 million. It is only a matter of time. Donald Trump will lose control of the Epstein files at some point. Okay, he is going to have to do something with them, and he can't. He's too implicated. He's too deep now. There's too many lies that are going to spew out now. When Kash Patel goes in front of Congress and says, from the information we have, there was no other Johns involved, no other predators involved, no other co-conspirators involved, we can see that was clearly a lie. He has perjured himself. Nobody's doing anything about it. But the next administration will. So now the acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, he will be subject to prosecution. Kash Patel, prosecution. Pam Bondi, prosecution. I don't think all these people are going to get last minute pardons. I just don't think that's going to work. This was supposed to be a transparent America first. We're all in. This is our best shot to make America as good as it possibly can be. Trump, remember, there was no other elections to run for. He had nothing else to win in politics. He's a billionaire. He's got a great story. He came from out of nowhere twice, and he's done the unthinkable. And we're going to go after that swamp. We're going to get America affordable. We're going to stay out of foreign wars. We're going to go after the Epstein files. We're going to go after the intelligence agencies that killed John F. Kennedy. We're going to do all those things. We're going to clean it up. That's what you told us. And that's why we said, we'll walk over glass for you to get you in this now third attempt. Joe Biden had done such a horrific job. And that's the sad thing, is we can't see a lot of separation between President Trump and President Biden. The gas situation, folks, it's the exact same as it was with Joe Biden. And that lasted for about probably 3 to 4 months, where it was really high, stayed up here, gas, and then it came back down and it hung out in $3. In Colorado, I'll be example, it was up a little over $5 for a period with Joe Biden. And then it stayed and stabilized for the rest of his term. This was like 21, call it like 320. Okay, that's what we're paying. Trump came in and energy moved down. There's no doubt about that. There was a move down, 230, 250, 260 a gallon during most pre-Iran, excuse me, pre-Iran invasion, you could say reasonable gas. Okay, we're 482 just today. I saw 482. Now, of course, now we're entering the peak of driving season, Memorial Day, 4th of July, summer times. We're out there, we're consuming. Now, again, we don't have an open Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so that's still happening. We don't have the refinery infrastructure in America to keep up with what we have to make it accessible to you and I's consumption so that it's economical. Because as it stands right now, every time we're in war, cost of living goes up. We don't accept that anymore. We're done with that. That's what you told us. No new wars. You said it, not me. That's why we sent you there, though. And what do we have? Maybe the mother of all wars, because Iran is 92 million. Iran is deep into drone and military technology. You don't mess with them. They're a religious fanatic state, and you killed their Ayatollah right out of the gate, along with the school children. Remember the 886 school children, the girls, along that same bombing when they took out the Ayatollah. Okay, so this has gone terribly, terribly bad. When I look at Joe Biden's inflation and I look at Donald Trump's inflation, are you telling me that things are cheaper today than they were during Joe Biden? Where would you be getting that? One little blip up? We are in a very expensive economy, folks, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. The gas is telling you all of that. Everything that's going to be related to these fuel consumption costs, and they're all going up. And you don't have food chains and supply chains broken yet, but that's going to start to happen. We have a lot of things flying all over this country and the world that we just seem to have to be in the middle of all of it. And that's why we really are going to have to step back and say, boomer person, is it worth it? Is it worth it to stay in these fights in Kuwait and Iraq and Iran? Is it worth it in Afghanistan for 20 years and Iraq and 10 years? Is it worth it? I mean, look what it's brought. Is America safer as a result? Can't say that. Is America cheaper as a result? Absolutely not going to say that. Has America solidified peace in the Middle East through our presence? Established them? Absolutely not. Okay. We have destabilized and made the Middle East a miserable place to even consider compromise peace, some kind of long-term, you do your thing, we're going to do ours, no problem. That's not ever going to happen there. Why? It can't. It feeds the machine. We need war. And Trump said, I can fight that back. I can push that back. We don't do new wars. We're America first, America only. And if you're America first, we're Christ first, America only. You understand? We start there. But America only puts that blinders on. You can't even see the world. You can't see Iraq. You can't see Afghanistan. You can't hear Ukraine. Everything in your world is, as American people, is their life improving? Because if it's not, what do we need to do to fix it? That's what we sent you there to do, and we've gone in the wrong direction. So is it clear to you yet? Donald Trump is not on the same team as he was when he entered and won that historic night in November 2024. Clearly, he's not. Here's a perfect example. Donald Trump was sued, threatened with lifetime in jail. Remember, Donald Trump basically had to win the presidency to keep himself out of jail for life. You understand that? So he wins on the backs of this We have to now fight the political corruption. Of course, we have to fight the LGBTQs. Of course, we have to fight the open border. They brought this political persecution. He had true enemies after him, trying to destroy him and his family's life. Do you know he's more pissed off, upset with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Thomas Massie? He's more upset with those three people than he is Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Jim Comey. Go down the list, Letitia James, all these people, that absolute buffoon in Georgia, Fani Willis. These people, he's more mad at the Thomas Masseys, the Lauren Boeberts, and the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. Why? What's the one singular thing? Yes, they're MAGA, but they demanded the Epstein files, prosecution, justice, release. Quit playing games with this. Why are you protecting these people? Don't forget Jeffrey Epstein, a liberal New York Democrat. Now his legacy somehow must be preserved. You're a bad person for wanting to have all the culprits of this thing done. And that's what he did to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's gone. Thomas Massie, now he's gone. Lauren Boebert, he has a standing offer to President Trump that if anybody in her district is a semi-competent person, he'd be glad to endorse him because of her foolish decision to back Thomas Massie. So if you saw it, Ed Gallrein, and I would just go to our baby boomers and say, Ed Gallrein, you were celebrating online, you were with President Trump, talking about how this Ed Gallrein, he is ex-military, so they went and found that perfect businessman, supposedly very tough, very bad, with a horse and boarding business where the horses were abused, but he checked the box, business owner, Kentucky, long-term Kentucky resident, and he was a boomer. And what did they do? They packaged up the 32 million, all from outside of Kentucky, from outside of the United States. But this is Miriam Adelson. This is Jewish money coming in and purchasing a seat in the United States Congress. Now, think about this for a second. We know who funded Ed Gallrein, the guy who eventually came to win in Kentucky's 4th District. We know who funded him, Miriam Adelson, Jewish born, Israeli born, served in the IDF, is a Jewish philanthropist, will tell you her heart is in Israel first, not America first. Okay, so she's a part of it. The AIPAC coalition, which of course is the lobbying group that makes sure that Jewish interests are always top of mind with all of our things. That crowd of people, $32 million. Okay, so what is now the expectation for Ed Gallrein? This person you've never heard of, no boomer on Fox News that was saying, yeah, President Trump, let's get this Ed guy in there because that Thomas Massie's being a real pain in the butt. None of you have ever heard of him. None of you have ever seen him or understand what he was about. But for the moment, because it served the machine's purpose, you went for it. And you have no idea the kind of damage you caused to the country and your grandchildren's country as a result of that foolish decision to say, hey, President Trump, I get it, but this is a good man. He's doing MAGA. Why are we kicking out the only MAGA guy from the MAGA party? Why are you doing that? Epstein. It's the only issue in America, folks. Until you address Epstein, there is no point in anything else. It all starts there and it refreshes from there. They just have to be exposed this time. And if President Trump is a part of that exposure list and he has to come down, there's not a person out there listening that once a child predator is revealed, no matter how you felt about them before that, you can never look at them the same or feel about them the same. And that information is going to come out. It's going to come out on all those redactions where you have senders to Jeffrey Epstein saying these filthy, horrible things that are absolutely about crimes they committed. You understand? That's going to come out. And then now what? Now what? Do you see it now? We weren't trying to beat you over the head with it. We were just trying to ask you to open your eyes and think about it. Why would a man that has nothing to hide, that ran in part on getting this corruption out, cleaning out government, draining the swamp, giving us the files, why would a man do a 180 on that position and then defiantly, aggressively, intentionally become the number one dispeller of anything Epstein? Why would he do that, you think? I'm asking that as a sincere question to the baby boomer, 62 to 80-year-old that doesn't get it yet. It doesn't get that something very bad has happened and there's one man that could fix it all. and he's opposing something that makes no sense. Why would he do that? Why would he flush his entire presidency down the toilet over the Epstein files? Why would you do that? Well, unless it meant cost you your life by releasing them, exposing them, either the people that told you you ever absolutely never ever release these. Do you understand, President Trump? Will cost you your life if you do. He's either responding to that or obviously knowing, well, I can't give them all the files. They're going to see what I've done. They're going to be able to say, I've been lying this entire time. And we know you have been. It's just like Howard Lutnick. He lied to us. Why did you lie to us? I just asked the baby boomer, step back, ask yourself, why would Howard Lutnick lie or try to hide his relationship regarding Jeffrey Epstein? Why would he do that? Was it shame that he had a friend with such a terrible past and habit? Well, that shouldn't really cause you to want to lie, because I guess the bigger question is, why did you still seek that friendship once you knew that information, but then yet were participating? What was your friendship like then, if it was so strong that you could forgive him of that history and overlook that history and continue a relationship? Or was it that he was busted? And so basically that was the memo. From this point forward, we severed ties. Hey, we didn't know Jeff was doing this stuff. Guy's a total pervert. We would never be a part of that ever. And so we're out of here. That's what they had to have you believe. But what we know is those relationships continued well beyond the 2008 arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, well beyond. Well, why? Why would they hide that then if they're clean? They're ashamed. Okay, we're asking you then. Your major leaders in a major country like the United States, what was it about Jeffrey Epstein, knowing his history, that was so exceptional that you still had to have him? What was it? What was the financial guidance, the support and friendship, the humor? What was it about Jeffrey Epstein then, since you didn't have anything to do with these crimes, that kept you in touch so close, knowing he had done this with children? For most people, like 99.99999 out of 100, the moment that information is brought to you, I don't know how to help you from here, but I am out of here. I can never be in the presence of that ever. It wouldn't be safe for you or me, right? That's the natural reaction. But in our billionaire case, our high-ranking government type situations, that's not the way they see it. They still see it was important to maintain some kind of connection to Jeffrey. And they felt bad for Jeffrey. Remember, Trump's on the record, what a great guy, Jeffrey was. And we know they were close. We're just not seeing the emails that we need to see to really put this all together. We're just not seeing the completion of the files. Because I can tell you right now, if those remaining 3 million files, like 2 emails out of there, 2 emails out of 3 million, you're telling me that you can't find the smoking gun that says, okay, there's a co-conspirator, not Jeff, or not Epstein, not Ghislaine. You're telling me out of 3 million more brand new emails, you're not going to find one other criminal in there? I'm sorry, you're going to find hundreds in this next file dump. And that's why this is getting so tight. So that's what brings us into Iran. So we have Epstein in the background that is still suppressed, still being kicked down the road. They're doing a good job of it, keeping it not in the limelight. You cannot have the Epstein file bubble up and start to be the #1 topic in America. It always is going to have to be tamped down with something big like war with Iran. What they're telling us today, Saturday, is that Iran and the United States, through, like 5 or 6 different other countries, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all these players, are coming to an agreement that Trump says this 84-day-old war is in the final stages of negotiations. Now, we've heard that before, that we've got a peace agreement. It's been on this peace ceasefire for, most of the war has been under this ceasefire, right? And then we have another meeting coming that falls apart. We return to the ceasefire and we have no deal. But they're lying to you, and he's lying to you when he suggests that they have a deal on the table, because here's what's going on over there. Is the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and that is still closed. It will remain closed. It's one of Iran's few pieces of leverage that they have in the game. The other piece that they have is the uranium, whether that's fully enriched to nuclear levels or stuff that they want to be able to possess for future enrichment. They are not That's not on the table for them to give that up. That's what they've said. And then it's a hard line from Israel that the United States has to go in and take all that out for them. So it's not enough to knock out their nuclear program and destroy their military and their navy and all these things that they say they're doing at the bottom of the sea. Of course, he keeps saying that. They also now have to physically go in and remove it, which means boots on the ground. This is, of course, Israel saying this is what needs to take place. This is Bibi, absolutely. You want to talk about regime change? You want to recommend a regime change to a regime change hungry country? Try Israel, try Bibi. Just see what happens when he's gone like the Ayatollah, or he's gone like Gaddafi, or he's gone like Saddam. Obvious wild suspicion, more peace breaks out than ever. Okay, that's just me. But, since we don't really put a lot of thought behind regime change, Venezuela, whatever, let's try Israel. Try Israel. And I don't think there's any shame in saying that out loud, that they're hostile actors, and they're the ones responsible for the United States' ultimate decision to get into this. Why? Well, they got the goods on the U.S., and they were saying, this is the moment, we want them now. So Israel says we have to get the uranium out, and then the Strait of Hormuz can't have any tolls, and it must be open, free and clear. Those are the only two things Iran has that has leverage over the world. So the uranium is not going to be taken out, and it wouldn't be taken out peacefully. It would have to be by force, which means, okay, this is now a full-on escalation war. So when they say peace is right around the corner, it can't be. It can't be, because what all these players have to have at the end, none of them could agree to. Iran giving up any remnant of nuclear material is a death sentence for them. You trust that the United States and Israel will just back off for life now that they don't have that capability, they don't have that product in the country anymore? Of course not. They're going to go in for the kill like Libya and ruin the country and overthrow the country and expand Israel. That's what's going to happen. So they have to keep that for no other purposes. Hey, we just need a gun in the dresser in case somebody breaks in the house. Okay, that type of worst case scenario defense, we have some. So of course they're going to do that. And the Strait of Hormuz, you can count on as being the most volatile region in the world from here on out. That's a promise from here on out. And now we know with conflict, what kind of squeeze can come on with that. Now we know when things want to get hostile in the region. That's why, again, they have to maintain dominance over there. If you're Iran, cannot give that up. And if they want to charge for that, then we're going to have to deal with that. Might have to take sanctions off so they don't have to charge. I mean, you could ease some pressure off, but that's nobody's end goal. That's not the objective. Trump's objective, and he says this like an absolute, sounds like the biggest absolute coward. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon under any circumstances. This just repetitive. I told the American people, I promised them they would never have a nuclear weapon. And I said, we never asked for that. We were not scared of that. And Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard and the NSA, they all told us that that was not even on the radar for us to be scared of. So you've made that up. And how do we know they made that up? Well, because right after the war, Marco Rubio said Israel was going to attack. We knew Iran would retaliate. So we preemptively, started destroying Iran. They said that. Of course they said that. But then what Trump says most of the time is that we could not let them have a nuclear weapon. And it was imminent. It was next week. It was coming down the pipeline. Nobody believes that, right? So you have a serious problem here with the messaging, because at the end of the day, we're now stuck 3 months now almost into this war. We're feeling the price, the pressure. Okay, we have inflation still as a result of this, but we don't see then, even if we win, what do we get? We weren't losing sleep at night over Iran anyways. So you want us to believe that somehow something that wasn't concerning to us, that this is just, well, you'll thank me later kind of thing, right? That we can't see what good was done for us. It was too 5D. It was too big picture. It was too deep, that this actually saved a life for my grandchildren and their children and so on and so forth. That seems like a tough sell, doesn't it? When there was already pressure at the pump, there was already pressure at the grocery store, there was already pressure in housing, there was already pressure. We didn't get our deportations. We've only sent out. Now, this is another number that boomers have to realize. Up and through the end of 2025, It's about 280,000 deportations, the Trump team. They'll tout up to 600,000. What they said is this: ones that they're turning away at the border, they are counting as deportations. They're counting in that number. But the real number, meaning where they physically got them and they physically sent them back wherever they came from, was under 300,000. And we put in 20 million people over 4 years, most of which are not desirable, most of which are going to cost you and I money in the form of public subsidies, increased fees, taxes, and just a drain on services. Most of them fell into that category. Believe it or not, they were not Girl Scouts and choir boys and missionaries. Most were, of below most people's standard of living. And we said, come on in. And then now Trump won't get them back out. They had to leave. And they're talking amnesty for some of these people. And if you remember the hysteria around DACA and Obama and just the sin that would be to give these people citizenship, that is not off the table, folks, that President Trump wouldn't just grant amnesty, try to come back into some good graces. I mean, he's really desperate. These shootings, these fake assassinations, they are really I think they're trying to get us to be sympathetic towards the president because he knows, he absolutely knows he is in such hot water. I want to play this one right now. This one is hilarious because he's talking about his popularity in Israel. Now, right now, President Trump has a 35% approval rating in this country. This is the whole mix, right? That 35%, that's your boomers, that's your holding on MAGAs, that's the ones that say, I'll never let this man go. Trump is my God. I will let anything he does slide because of how this man makes me feel, that kind of thing. But he is incredibly proud. Sillily proud about the...
He's a great guy. To me, he's a great guy. Don't forget, he was a wartime prime minister. And he's not treated right in Israel, in my opinion. I'm right now at 99% in Israel. I could run for prime minister. So maybe after I do this, I'll go to Israel, run for prime minister. I had a poll this morning. I'm 99%. So that's good. But no, he's a wartime prime minister. And I just don't think they treat him well.
So he's worried about the treatment of Bibi Netanyahu. But you hear that. Just think of the insult there. So we're like already totally still pissed because we saw what you did to Thomas Massie. You took $30 million and had this nothing and nobody candidate. And you took the last MAGA guy out of the game. Now they're not left. And then you run this around and then you shove that down the throat to say how much Israel loves you. So this was all for Israel. The Iran thing was for Israel. The Epstein cover-up was for Israel. This Ed Gallrein unseating Thomas. Is that what you're implying? And yet you're proud of that. And that's, again, we don't understand why our boomers, who aren't all going to church, who didn't all grow up in the New Testament or the Old Testament and sacrificing and practicing Judaism, but somehow they're just willing to accept that, no, this is the gold standard. You will support Israel, regardless of how it looks. Don't let your eyes deceive you. If they're doing it, it's good. They can't get off of that. It was ingrained in. You know what's interesting? I was visiting with my grandmother in this rehab after some surgery, and we were discussing, and of course, the idea of salvation and Judaism, and Jews came up. And this is what she told me, and this is how scary and how deep this got in. This is Schofield type stuff, Zionist stuff. But she said that when she was growing up, and this is in Baptist school as a little girl, that of course all Jews go to heaven because Jesus Christ himself was Jewish. And it was just, that's the way it went. You were in his blood and you were there. And that's how she kind of was taught that as a young child. And in fact, that's so far from the truth. In fact, John 14:6, it says it very clearly. Jesus speaking, I am the way, the truth, the life. There is no other way to the Father except through me. And that includes Jews. And of course, now you remember Gentiles like myself and so many, and the Christians around the world that took this message of the gospel to heart and spread it. That is essentially, from our perspective, that is a big deal, where you cannot be with the Father. You are eternally separated from the Father, but for Jesus Christ. And that verse tells us there's no gray area in it. were grafted in, not as to be braggarts about it, because remember, it says, if God can cut out the original branch, what do you think he can do to you? So we're not saying it as braggarts, but as it stands right now, unless that Jewish person hits his knees and takes Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, the Son of the Most High, the living God, Jesus Christ died on that cross. Unless that Jewish person says that in his heart, he spends eternity separated from God. Is that being spoken clearly in most Christian churches? Absolutely not. And it was taught not clearly not like that for much of the last the 1900s and on. This is in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, this kind of era where we're pounding this down. This basically Israel can do no wrong. The Jewish person has only been persecuted, never the perpetrator. They did a good job on it. I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to even try to fight it. That they did a number that once that gets unwound, and I go back to Charlie Kirk, who was starting to sort of pull that veil back and say, maybe our interests, Israel and Jewish, or Judaism and Israel, are not consistent with America and Christianity. There's conflict, and there's clear conflict. Of course, in the book, the Bible, the scriptures tells us that there is a new covenant. We're doing it this way now because his way is better. That's what they're saying to us in the New Testament. And so we're going to go ahead and continue to say our one prayer for Israel, our one prayer for the Jewish people is that they come to the Lord Jesus Christ. They get that salvation that was so promised to them, that was right there in their grasp, right amongst them. You know, God clearly chose the Jewish people to teach through, to pass this through on. But it was never designed for only them. But right now we're losing them. So the Christian that loves Israel, the Christian that says, do anything you want for Israel, do this for the Israel person, the Jewish person, that person. Pray that they come to the Lord Jesus Christ. That's the only way you can save them. Why send our children to die on their behalf when you could save their soul by evangelizing them? That's the Christian Zionist. That's where you should be. That's where your heart should be if you really loved your Jewish brother. But of course you don't. You were brainwashed, and now you're scared to say, was I confused? Was I deceived? Did I get lied to? They say it's one of the hardest things for people to do. Admit when you've been wronged. Holy cow, that guy just totally suckered me. I didn't even see it coming. Right? That's one of the hardest things for people. They would rather just continuously be lied to than have to face that fear of, I was duped and it stinks and it sucks. But wouldn't you want to live in the truth? Isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what Jesus came for? He came as the truth. Isn't that what you should be seeking aggressively on your tongue every day? I need the truth. And even if it makes me look like a fool because of my old thinking, and I'm guilty as charged in that so many times, but I'm grateful to not still be that same fool listening to the lie, right? So we have a major headwind coming. There is no doubt that you can be tiptoeing your way this close to escalating in Iran, the cover up in the Epstein files, and then the absolute snow job on Thomas Massie. That's going to have consequences, whether they're this summer or at November. Make no mistake about it, folks. Democrats get control in November. It is going to be a bloodbath. It is going to be ugly for Republicans. And you won't be able to say, gosh, how is this happening again? These are some great men. Look at how they fought for kids. Look at how they fought to deport people. They did none of that. No, they fed the machine, and we paid the price. And so it's going to cost them a lot. It's going to cost them everything in November, as it should. And so it might be one of those elections. Of course, you can never vote for a Democrat. Why? They take some slob man, put lipstick and a bra on him, and they tell you and I, that's a beautiful woman, and shame on you if you don't acknowledge the beauty in this beast, right? We're not playing that game. So unfortunately, it discourages voters. And so voters say, I think I'm out. I have to choose between that and that. No, thank you, I'm out. What else can I do? How else can I rally, find community, and try to take a country back? It's not going to work this way, folks. If you thought you could vote your way out of the mess of the United States, the swamp nature of it, can you see for yourself? You can't vote your way out of it. It gets worse, not better. You could argue it's worse, not better, because it's the same corruption. Now we just have more inflation than ever. So if we're going to live under corruption with Donald Trump or under Joe Biden, wouldn't you rather live under corruption at a lower price, at least? Like, you're going to lie to me? Can I do it for cheaper? And that's not happening. It's costing us more to live under this empire of lies. who is still interested in that? Who is still wanting to say, give me more of that? Small group hanging on. That's why I think it's a lot worse than people believe, because we really haven't even gotten to the economic pain yet that's absolutely coming. People can't buy houses. We have inflated assets everywhere. We haven't really had that MAGA event that causes fear in markets, fear in the consumer. Consumer confidence right now is at a low from all the Trump terms. It is at its lowest moment right now. Why? They can feel it in every way they do. And he said, we're going to get it down. We're going to work on it. We're going to do this for you. And they're not seeing any action. You know what they're seeing? They're seeing a lot of praise of Benjamin Netanyahu, a lot of praise of Israel. They're seeing a lot of praise of the military efforts in Iran and Venezuela, and that it doesn't matter the cost to pay. I mean, what they're implying with this Iran and this globalism is that it doesn't matter if we have to sacrifice the U.S. economy. This group made us mad, therefore we're coming after them. And you and I pay the price for it. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, economically, those kind of decisions then come right back home, and we have to pay for that. And I just think it's time to say, we're done, we're out. Don't be afraid to hurt their feelings. They work for you and I. Remember that, folks. The way system's set up is every 2 years, every 4 years, we're going to say, this was not going to cut it. That's not good enough because you said this and you didn't do it. When it came time to vote the way we had to vote, you flinched. You flinched. Okay, because why? They offered money here. They offered position here, power here, a deal here. Again, you weren't fighting for us. You were fighting for your own political career and future power, future money. And that's how we get into this over and over and over again. So we have an epic week coming. We have a wonderful Memorial Weekend coming. So God bless you and yours, folks. Do this until next time. Serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.